Hey gang, John here with another edition of our micro lesson series. If you've watched some of these in the past, you know that we publish a video each week, somewhere between 15 minutes and about a half hour long, covering something music related, either related to features on an instrument, related to terms or things that you might learn in a music class. But we try to spend a little bit of time going over things that beginners would find helpful. As I've always said, if we're going to grow this hobby, it starts with beginners. This week we're going to be talking about something called a monophonic sound and a polyphonic sound. And this is a question that came to us from a viewer out of state. And she wrote to us, and I did not ask her if I could use her name in the video, so I'm not going to. But she wrote to us and said that she was in her class this week, and the teacher was talking about monophonic and polyphonic sounds, and she wasn't quite clear on what those were and if she had those features on her instrument. Now, funny enough, she is playing on a Lowrey fanfare, so I'm going to use the fanfare today to show her, along with you, what monophonic sounds are, how you can take advantage of them. I'll then take a step over to the clavinovas for those of you that may be playing on something like that, and I'll show you how they work on those instruments as well. Okay, thank you very much for your question this week, and please, if you have questions, I love to answer them. So I have a list of questions that we've gotten, and I'm kind of weeding through the ones that I think would be applicable to everybody slowly but surely. And I thought that this one was great because this question comes up in our program very often. So let's go take a look at the difference between monophonic and polyphonic sounds and how you can use them while you play. So a monophonic sound has to do with hearing one tone at a time. And there are a lot of instruments that are traditionally monophonic sounds. So for example, you have things like the saxophone, things like the oboe, your brass instruments, vocal for that matter. Those are different in comparison to things, for example, like the piano or the organ or the guitar, the vibes, things like that, because those instruments that I mentioned second have the ability to play more than one sound at a time. They can play more than one note at a time is probably a better way to put it. And those are considered to be polyphonic sounds, multiple tones. Whereas mono means one, monophonic is giving that instrument only the ability to play one note at a time because traditionally it can only play one note at a time. If I wanted, for example, a trombone to make the sound of a chord and it was a 3-note chord, what I would need are 3 musicians all playing trombones playing in a different pitch as compared to one another. So you might have one playing a C, another one playing an E, another one playing a G, and then all together you get, you know, what would sound like a C chord, but that can't be played by one person. Whereas a piano can easily play a C chord not only by one person but with one hand. And this is where on the Lowrys this blue section comes into play. Over here it says solo, and this is where you can take advantage of the monophonic aspects of, in this case, the fanfare. This is the instrument that the viewer had questions on. So when I turn on my solo section, I have access to a variety of different instruments. Now, there is a great benefit aside from what I'm about to go over today, and that is the fact that many of the instruments that are in your orchestra are also options that you can choose under your solo. The benefit being, let's say I wanted, for example, what I have set up right now with a smooth foxtrot beat is a trombone on the upper level and the trumpet on the bottom level. Now, normally those would both come from this brass option, and I can't get 2 of those on simultaneously, at least not on the fanfare here. Whereas if I have that solo button pressed, I can get one from the brass section, and then I can get another from the solo, so I have the opportunity simultaneously to put 2 sounds on that would have normally come from the same button. So what I've done is I've gone and chosen on the solo button here the muted trumpet, and we put it down on the lower keyboard. And I just want to give you an idea of what this monophonic tone sounds like and how we can use it to our advantage. So when we put a sound like, for example, in this case, the muted trumpet on the bottom keyboard, it makes no difference how many keys on this bottom level that I play simultaneously. It will only play whatever the top one is that I play. So if I play a C, I'm going to hear a C. Well, if I play the C and I don't let it go and I play an E, you notice that it canceled the C out and instead replaced it with the E. I could play a whole slew of notes here and it's only going to play this highest note. Now the advantage to that is you can make the instrument sound a bit more authentic. You know, when you're using a sound like that and you want it to be a solo musician, if one finger lingers on a key a little bit longer than you anticipate it lingering on that key, what you end up getting normally would be two tones together, which is not going to sound authentic if your purpose was to make it sound if you were only using one instrument, which again, the muted trumpet is, or any trumpet for that matter, can only play one note at a time. So whereas if I hit a multiple of keys here accidentally, now here I am, I hit 4 notes, we'll say accidentally here, but all I heard was the top one. So it basically creates, or corrects rather, a mistake, possible mistake that I might make in my hand, and that's via that that solo option. Now it also gives us the opportunity to create different arrangement techniques while we're playing. For example, you can do what we would call a little bit of a trill. Now a trill is usually an undulation of 2 notes. You know, you could go, which can be a little bit tricky. You know, you got to use 2 fingers, you got to go back and forth. But if I have the solo on, I can hold the bottom one and then just quickly tap the top one with my other finger. And what an easier way to do a trill. So I can do this, but I can do this, and it makes it much, much simpler. With the solos, you also have this option called slide, and the slide button is right next to the solo button there. Used to be called portamento, but they've since changed it to this word slide because they were finding that many people were not you know, aware of what portamento meant. And it basically means that you can slide from one tone, in this case maybe a low tone to a high tone, and you're successively moving through all of the notes in between them. Now that would be perfect, for example, if I was going to play something like Happy Trails, let's say. Now Happy Trails, maybe I use the harmonica sound. We'll put, you can hear trigger clopping along there on the trail. You might start out with the harmonica. Let me jump down to the whistle here. Now the whistle on the lower keyboard is a monophonic sound. It's going to be someone whistling, okay? But I also have it on the slide. Now what the slide's going to let me do is slide from one note to the next, basically successively running through every note in between. It's a very smooth process, but it rolls from the low note to the high note in this case, rather than just popping right there. So if I start here, little trill there. Now with that slide, again, I'm holding a note down and it will roll Hear it roll up, so you almost do like a wolf whistle if you wanted to. But that's the idea of the solo in the Lowry fanfare. Any Lowry that has a little blue section over there on the right-hand side, so this would include older models like the Odysseys and the Encores, as well as the newer ones like the Inspires and the Rialtos and the Sterlings and the, well, Sterling's a little bit of an older model, the Arias. You have this blue section of buttons over on the right-hand side, and that's what's going to give you the opportunity to take advantage of these monophonic sounds. Okay, we'll go over and take a look at the Yamahas and see how they do it. So this is how monophonic sounds work on the Yamaha CVP series. This is the 709 here, and I've gone ahead and chosen the classical flute sound. Now the flute, again, is a monophonic tone played one note at a time, and Yamaha's very up on this, and they actually do this in a very intuitive way. Their polyphonic sounds, things, for example, like the piano. As soon as I play a second note, it's just added in there automatically because that's how those sounds are created. Whereas if I go to a monophonic sound, it will act the same way that I just showed you the Lowry does, in that it only plays one note at a time. But if I play notes simultaneously, it will play all three. Or in this case, three. Could be two, could be four, whatever the case may be. But if I play them singly, it gives me that monophonic tone, which is a really, really interesting and advanced way that they've created their system here, whereas they act both polyphonic and monophonic, so I don't have to hit any buttons or make any changes. If I want that polyphonic feel, maybe I want it to sound like there's a couple flautists playing while I'm using my arrangement, and then there might be an instance where I only want it to be one. I don't have to make any changes in the panel or on any buttons. But again, just like in the Lowrys, what the polyphonic or the monophonic feel rather gives you is this peace of mind to know that if you happen to linger on one note and not quite take the finger off of that key to get to the next one, it will release that first key and play that next one for you so as to allow it to sound as authentic as possible. Basically, is fixing any little flubs in your fingers that you might have in that respect. And it really lets you play things, for example, a song we're doing this week in our lesson program is a song For Elise. And if you're familiar with that song, there's a lot of this D, E, D sharp stuff. Well, if I hold my E down, you notice all I was doing was reaching down for that D sharp there without ever releasing my E, and it really allowed it to flow very nicely. But again, if I play multiple fingers, I hear them all. Okay, so putting this together, I'm going to purposefully kind of hold some fingers down as I go through other ones, which in an ideal sense is not what I want to do, but the instrument, knowing that I'm using a monophonic sound, is going to fix those errors so as to allow it to still sound like a single flute player. So if I start here, now, could you see there what I was doing? It's actually very difficult for me to try to make mistakes because I usually don't do that. But what I was trying to do is linger on notes even though I was to go to the next one. And it was causing me to make a couple mistakes here in the left hand as well. But the point is that if you do make those mistakes, the instrument, if you're using a monophonic sound, is likely to help you in fixing those. So that's how it works on the clavinovas here. It's a really nice feature to utilize if you have it, and I find it to be very helpful personally with my playing. Well, that was a great lesson, everybody. I hope you got something out of it. Just to remind you, there are multiple ways that you can reach out to me if you have any questions regarding this lesson that you just watched or any of the previous lessons, or again, if you have any ideas for a lesson in the future. You can reach out to us directly. Our studio line is area code 401-277-9800. We are located in Johnston, Rhode Island at 1665 Hartford Avenue. Keys to Fun is also online in a few different locations. If you go to our website, www.keystofunmusic.com, you can ask us questions via the chat box, and it comes to me just like a text message, so sometimes I can get back to you within just a few minutes. You can also subscribe on our website to receive these emails each week in your inbox so that you don't forget to check if we've published a new one. Feel free to also visit our Facebook page. Our Facebook page, if you look up Keys to Fun Music and Lesson Centers, you'll see me along with some of our students and our equipment there as well. Keys to Fun is an authorized Lowry and Yamaha dealer, and we are well equipped to answer any questions that you have regarding instruments made by either one of those companies. I thank you again for your time. I know it's valuable, and I'm so happy to know that you're spending a little bit of it with us. Keep playing, have fun. We'll see you again soon.